In the dim glow of a rain-slicked alley in downtown New York, under the relentless pour of a stormy night, Jack Harlan stood with his back against the cold brick wall, his breath coming in sharp, ragged bursts. At 35, he was the unchallenged king of the city's underbelly, a man whose name whispered fear through the corridors of power and the backrooms of high-stakes deals. His dark suit clung to his broad frame, soaked through, and the faint scar running along his jawline caught the flicker of a distant street lamp. But tonight, none of that mattered. Emily Carter, the woman who had pierced the armor of his shadowed existence, lay slumped in his arms, her vibrant red hair matted with blood from a bullet that had grazed her temple. The rival crew's ambush had come out of nowhere, tires screeching, guns blazing in the night, and Jack had fought like a demon to pull her from the crossfire. "Stay with me, Em," he growled, his voice a low thunder as he pressed his hand against her wound, the metallic tang of blood mixing with the ozone scent of the storm. Her eyes fluttered open, locking onto his with a mix of terror and unyielding trust. And in that moment, as sirens wailed closer, Jack realized the shadows he had thrived in were crumbling. For her, he would burn it all down. But as he lifted her into the waiting black SUV, a chilling thought sliced through him. The man who ordered the hit was closer than he imagined, and this love could be the spark that ignited a war neither of them could survive. "Hi, I'm Rose Cameron, your guide through these tales of passion and peril in the heart of the American underworld. If Jack and Emily's story has you on the edge of your seat already, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share it with a friend who loves a good thriller. Your support keeps these stories coming, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's next." New York City pulsed with its usual chaotic energy that crisp autumn evening, the skyline a jagged crown of steel and glass piercing the twilight sky. I had known Jack Harlan for years, ever since he rose through the ranks of the Harlan family syndicate, a network that controlled everything from the docks of Brooklyn to the exclusive clubs of Manhattan. At 35, Jack wasn't your stereotypical old-school mobster. He was sharp, calculated, with a mind like a steel trap and eyes that could read a room's secrets in seconds. His hair, dark and cropped close, often fell slightly over his forehead when he was deep in thought, and he favored tailored suits from Fifth Avenue tailors that hid the weight of the world he carried. But it was his hands, strong, calloused from years of enforcing his rule, that told the real story, marked by a subtle tattoo of interlocking chains on his knuckles, a reminder of the bonds he both forged and broke. Jack lived in the shadows, orchestrating deals in smoke-filled backrooms and navigating the treacherous alliances that kept his empire intact. He trusted no one fully, not even his own lieutenants, because in this world, loyalty was a currency that could flip in an instant. That's how he liked it. Alone at the top, untouchable. Until Emily Carter walked into his life like a storm off the Atlantic. Emily was 28, a rising star in the world of investigative journalism, with a fire in her hazel eyes that could melt the iciest resolve. She had moved to New York from a small town in Ohio 2 years prior, chasing stories that exposed the corruption festering beneath the city's glittering surface. Her auburn hair cascaded in loose waves down her back, and she dressed with an effortless style. Fitted blazers over silk blouses, paired with heels that clicked authoritatively on marble floors. Emily wasn't naive. She had tangled with powerful figures before, but nothing prepared her for the Harlan Syndicate. Our paths crossed at a charity gala in Midtown, one of those events where the elite mingled with the underworld under the guise of philanthropy. I was there as a guest, sipping champagne and observing the dance of power plays. Jack, ever the shadow, lurked near the bar, his presence commanding without a word. Emily, assigned to cover the event for her magazine, cornered him with questions about rumored waterfront developments, innocent enough on the surface, but probing too close to his operations. "Mr. Harlan," she said, her voice steady as she held his gaze. "Rumors say your family's investments are reshaping the harbor. Care to comment on the community impact?" Jack's lips curved into a rare, genuine smile, the kind that softened the hard lines of his face. He leaned in, his cologne, a mix of sandalwood and citrus, wafting toward her. Miss Carter, in this city, impacts are like ripples in the Hudson. Some you see, some you don't. But if you're diving in, watch for the currents. Their exchange lingered, charged with an electricity that even I could feel from across the room. Little did Emily know that conversation would pull her into a tide she couldn't escape. As the weeks unfolded, Emily's pursuit of the story led her deeper into Jack's world. She started receiving anonymous tips, documents slipped under her apartment door in Chelsea, photos of shady deals at the ports, each one inching her closer to the truth about the Harlan family's grip on the city's logistics empire. Jack, intrigued by her tenacity, began shadowing her subtly, ensuring her safety without her knowledge. He told himself it was business. After all, a journalist poking around could unravel threads he had spent years weaving. But late nights in his penthouse overlooking Central Park, with the city lights sprawling like a map of his domain, Jack found himself replaying their gala encounter. Emily's laugh, sharp and unfiltered, echoed in his mind, a contrast to the calculated silences of his daily life. One evening, as fog rolled in from the river, Emily met with a source in a dimly lit diner in Hell's Kitchen. The air was thick with the aroma of greasy fries and strong coffee, the jukebox crooning an old Sinatra tune. Her source, a nervous dock worker with trembling hands, slid a USB drive across the table. This proves the Harlans are skimming union funds. But if they find out I talked... His words trailed off as the door chimed, and Jack entered, his coat draped over one arm, eyes scanning the room like a predator. Emily's heart raced as he slid into the booth opposite her, uninvited. "Evening, Miss Carter. Mind if I join? These places aren't safe for a woman alone." She bristled, but there was something in his tone. Not threat, but genuine concern. As they talked, the conversation shifted from accusations to shared glimpses of vulnerability. Her drive to uncover truth for her late father's sake, his unspoken losses in a life of constant vigilance. By the time they parted, the rain starting to patter against the windows, Emily felt the first crack in her resolve. Jack watched her go, the USB burning a hole in his pocket. He had swiped it without her noticing. But what he discovered on it would force his hand in ways neither could foresee. The city seemed to close in around them as autumn deepened into winter, the first snow dusting the streets like powdered sugar on a bitter pill. Emily threw herself into piecing together the puzzle, her small apartment transformed into a war room of pinned notes and glowing screens. She ignored the late-night calls from unknown numbers, the shadows that lingered too long outside her window. Jack, from his vantage in the shadows, orchestrated protections, a detail of discreet bodyguards, favors called in to keep her paths clear. Yet, he couldn't stay away. Their second real meeting came at a high-end lounge in Soho, where velvet ropes and pulsing bass masked the undercurrents of illicit deals. Emily had been tipped off about a Harlan shipment, and there she was, nursing a martini at the bar, her green dress hugging her figure like a second skin. Jack approached, his presence parting the crowd like Moses at the sea. "You shouldn't be here," he murmured, sliding onto the stool beside her, his knee brushing hers accidentally. Or was it? "And you shouldn't be anywhere near this life," she shot back, but her voice lacked its usual edge. They talked for hours, the conversation weaving between flirtation and friction. He shared fragments of his past, a childhood in the Bronx, losing his parents young, climbing the ranks through sheer will. She confessed her fears of becoming jaded, of the story consuming her. As the night wore on, the lounge's amber lights casting warm glows on their faces, Jack's hand covered hers on the bar top. "You're light in this darkness, Em. Don't let it dim you." She pulled away, but not before feeling the spark ignite. Driving home in his sleek black Mercedes, the wipers slashing through the flurries, Jack gripped the wheel tighter. He had crossed a line, and now the shadows were whispering warnings. But the real danger was the rival faction, the Vipers, who had been eyeing his territory for months, and they had just gotten wind of his growing distraction. Tension built like a storm over the Hudson as Emily delved deeper, her articles gaining traction in underground circles. She published a piece on union corruption, carefully anonymizing sources but hinting at the Harlan name, sending ripples through the syndicate. Jack's lieutenants grew restless, questioning his focus during tense meetings in a fortified warehouse on the waterfront, where crates of imported goods hid darker secrets. The air smelled of salt and diesel, the distant horn of a barge echoing like a mournful call. "Boss, this journalist, she's trouble," his right-hand man, Tommy Reyes, urged, his face etched with loyalty born of shared battles. Jack paced, his chains tattoo flexing with each step. "She's more than that. Handle the vipers, I'll handle her." But handling Emily proved impossible. Their paths converged again at a black tie auction in the Upper East Side, where million-dollar artworks masked money-laundering fronts. Emily, elegant in a sapphire gown that accentuated her curves, bid on a painting to get closer to a Viper associate. Jack, in a charcoal tuxedo that sharpened his athletic build, intercepted her in a private viewing room. "Playing with fire, Em," he said, his voice low as he stepped close, the scent of his aftershave enveloping her. She turned, her breath catching at the intensity in his blue eyes. "Someone has to expose the truth, Jack. Even if it's you." What followed was a charged dance. Arguments laced with longing, revelations that peeled back layers. He admitted the Empire's weight, the isolation of power. She shared her dreams of a life beyond bylines. As the auction's gavel fell downstairs, Jack pulled her into a shadowed alcove, his lips brushing her ear. "Let me protect you. This world, it devours the light." She hesitated, her hand on his chest feeling the steady beat beneath. But as they emerged, a Viper enforcer's glare from across the room promised retribution. Jack's mind raced. How long could he shield her before the shadows claimed them both? Winter gripped New York in its icy fist, blanketing Central Park in snow that muffled the city's roar, but amplified the whispers of conspiracy. Emily's latest exposé hit close to home, naming the Viper's involvement in a dockside heist, indirectly spotlighting Harlan operations. Threats escalated, her car tires slashed, anonymous emails laced with veiled warnings. Undeterred, she pressed on, meeting Jack in secret at a cozy Italian bistro in Little Italy, where candlelight flickered over plates of pasta and glasses of Chianti. The aroma of garlic and basil hung heavy, a brief respite from the chill outside. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, twirling fettuccine on her fork, her eyes searching his. Jack leaned forward, his forearms on the checkered tablecloth, veins prominent from years of discipline. "Because you're the first person in years who sees me, not the boss, and because I can't let them touch you." Their fingers intertwined across the table, a silent vow amid the clink of silverware. That night, as snow swirled past the windows, Jack drove her home in his heated Escalade, the radio softly playing jazz. Parked outside her building, with the engine humming, he cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. Their kiss was inevitable, slow at first, then deepening with the pent-up emotion of their worlds colliding. Emily's hands roamed his shoulders, feeling the tension coiled there, while Jack savored the warmth of her against the cold night. But as they broke apart, breathless, a black sedan idled across the street, its tinted windows hiding watchful eyes. Jack's jaw tightened. The Vipers were closing in, and this budding romance was now their most vulnerable point. As spring teased the edges of winter's hold, cherry blossoms budding along the avenues, Emily and Jack's connection deepened into something undeniable. Stolen moments became their refuge, walks in the pre-dawn hush of Riverside Park, where the river's lap against the piers mirrored their whispered confessions. Late-night drives upstate in his Porsche, the wind whipping through open windows as they escaped the city's grasp. Emily, once so guarded, found herself opening up about her fractured family, the drive that fueled her journalism. Jack, in turn, revealed the scars of his ascent, the betrayals, the losses that hardened him at such a young age. At 35, he carried the weight of decisions that aged him beyond his years, his reflection in the mirror showing faint lines around his eyes from sleepless nights plotting against rivals. Yet with Emily, those shadows receded, her laughter a balm to his guarded soul. One evening, atop the Empire State Building's observatory after hours, a perk of his influence, they overlooked the twinkling expanse. "I never thought I'd find this," Jack murmured, his arm around her waist, the city a sea of lights below. Emily leaned into him, her head on his shoulder. "Light in the darkness?" He nodded, kissing her temple. But as they descended, Jack's phone buzzed with urgent news, a viper mole inside his operation, and the target was Emily. He shielded her from the details, but the fear gnawed at him. How could he build a future when his world demanded blood? The fragile peace shattered on a humid May night, the air thick with the scent of blooming lilacs and impending rain. Emily had uncovered a lead on the Viper's leader, Victor Slade, a ruthless operator from the Bronx with a grudge against the Harlans dating back to a territory dispute. She arranged a meet with an informant in a nondescript coffee shop in Queens, the kind with Formica counters and endless refills. Jack insisted on accompanying her, his Glock concealed under his jacket. As they sat in a corner booth, steam rising from their mugs, the informant, a jittery ex-Viper, slid over a folder. "Slade's planning a hit on Harlan's main warehouse, but he's got eyes on the girl too." Emily's face paled, but before she could respond, the door burst open. 3 armed men stormed in, masks pulled low, guns drawn. Chaos erupted, screams, overturned chairs, the acrid smell of gunpowder as shots rang out. Jack dove across the table, tackling Emily to the floor, his body shielding hers as bullets whizzed overhead. "Stay down," he roared, firing back with precision born of survival. The informant slumped, caught in the crossfire, and one assailant fell, but the others retreated into the night. In the aftermath, sirens blaring, Jack held Emily close amid the debris, her trembling form pressed against him. "This is because of me," she whispered, tears streaking her face. He shook his head fiercely. "No, Em, this is our fight now." As paramedics swarmed, Jack's mind whirled. Slade had declared war, and Emily was the prize. But in her eyes, he saw not fear, but resolve, and that terrified him more than any bullet. Summer heat waves baked the concrete, turning New York into a furnace where tempers flared as easily as the sun. Emily refused to back down, her determination fueling a series of clandestine meetings with Jack's trusted allies. They holed up in a safe house in the Hamptons, a sprawling estate with ocean views that offered temporary sanctuary. The salty breeze carried hints of freedom, but inside, plans brewed like a storm. Jack, sleeves rolled up, revealing the full extent of his chains tattoo snaking up his forearm, pored over maps and intel on the kitchen island. Emily, in jeans and a simple tee that highlighted her athletic grace, contributed her journalistic insights, connecting dots the syndicate might miss. Their nights blurred into intimacy, lazy mornings tangled in sheets, conversations stretching into dawn about dreams of a life unburdened by crime. "Run with me," Jack urged one evening on the porch, the waves crashing below. "We leave it all behind." Emily hesitated, her fingers tracing his jaw. "And who would we be without our fights?" Their lovemaking was passionate, a release from the tension, bodies moving in sync like a dance honed by adversity. But reality intruded. Tommy reported Viper movements, a convoy heading toward the city. Jack kissed her fiercely before leaving at midnight, his Range Rover disappearing into the fog. Emily watched from the window, heart pounding. Alone with her thoughts, she wondered if love could truly conquer the shadows, or if it would drag them both under. As the season peaked, alliances fractured under the pressure. Victor Slade, a wiry man in his 40s with a perpetual sneer and a viper tattoo coiling his neck, escalated the conflict by hitting Harlan's shipments, disrupting cash flows and sowing doubt among Jack's crew. In a tense summit at a neutral steakhouse in Midtown, the air heavy with cigar smoke and sizzling meat, Jack faced off against Slade's emissary. "This ends now," Jack declared, his voice steel, fist clenched on the table. The emissary smirked. "Your girl's the key, Harlan. Hand her over, or we take everything." Jack's blood boiled, but he played it cool, excusing himself to call Emily. "They're coming for you. Stay hidden." She, working from a coffee shop in Brooklyn, felt the noose tighten. That afternoon, a car bomb detonated near one of Jack's warehouses, the explosion's rumble shaking her windows miles away. Rushing to the scene, Emily pushed through the chaos, firefighters hosing flames, ambulances wailing, to find Jack bloodied but unbowed, coordinating the response. "I can't lose you," she cried, throwing her arms around him amid the acrid smoke. He held her tight, the world fading. "You won't." But as they pulled away, a Viper scout spotted them, radioing coordinates. Jack realized the safe house was compromised. They had to move. Racing through traffic in his Audi, sirens in pursuit, Jack glanced at Emily. "Trust me?" She nodded, gripping his hand. The chase led to the Brooklyn Bridge, lights blurring, hearts racing. At the span's end, they evaded capture, but the cost mounted. Jack's empire teetered, and Emily's safety hung by a thread. What if the next strike was fatal? Fall returned with a vengeance, leaves turning crimson like spilled blood on the sidewalks. Emily and Jack went underground, relocating to a discreet loft in Tribeca, its exposed brick walls and high ceilings a stark contrast to the tension within. Here, away from prying eyes, their relationship blossomed amid the peril. A quiet dinner by candlelight, her head on his lap as they watched the sunset paint the skyline. Jack opened up about his fears, the legacy of violence that defined him, the doubt that he could ever be more than the boss. "You're my light, Em," he confessed one rainy night, rain pattering against the windows like urgent fingers. She traced the chains on his hand. "Then let me pull you from the shadows." Their love deepened, physical and emotional, nights filled with whispered promises and tender explorations that healed old wounds. But the Vipers struck again, kidnapping Tommy as leverage. Jack mobilized, leading a raid on an abandoned factory in the industrial city, the air thick with rust and oil. Gunfire echoed through the cavernous space, shadows dancing in muzzle flashes. He found Tommy bound, beaten, but alive. "They want the girl," Tommy gasped. Jack's resolve hardened. He couldn't let them win. Back at the loft, Emily waited anxiously, pacing the hardwood floors. When Jack returned, bruised and weary, she bandaged his wounds, their eyes meeting in silent understanding. "We're in this together," she said. He pulled her close, the kiss sealing their bond. Yet, as dawn broke, an encrypted message arrived. Slade demanded a meet, or Emily died. Jack stared at the screen, the weight crushing. Could he negotiate peace, or would love demand the ultimate sacrifice? The climax brewed in the underbelly of the city, where the subway's rumble masked darker dealings. Jack arranged the parlay in an old speakeasy beneath Times Square, its walls lined with faded posters and the faint echo of jazz from another era. The air was stale, laced with whiskey and tension. Slade arrived with his entourage, smug in a leather jacket, his Viper ink gleaming under low lights. "Harlan, you've gone soft for a skirt," he taunted, eyeing Jack's clenched fists. "This ends with her out of the picture." Jack's voice was ice. "Touch her, and your empire crumbles." Words escalated to shoves, then to drawn weapons, the room a powder keg. Emily, hidden nearby per Jack's orders, watched via a concealed camera feed on her phone, heart in her throat. As fists flew, Jack disarmed one thug, his movements fluid from years of street-honed combat. But Slade lunged, knife flashing, slicing Jack's arm. Blood sprayed, but Jack countered, pinning Slade against the bar. "She's mine to protect," he growled, pistol to Slade's temple. In that frozen moment, Emily burst in, defying orders, her presence shifting the dynamic. "Stop this!" she shouted, voice cutting through the fray. The room stilled, all eyes on her. Slade laughed bitterly. "The light that blinds you." Jack hesitated, gun steady, love and rage warring within. Emily stepped forward, eyes locked on his. "Don't become the monster they want." Slowly, Jack lowered the weapon, calling a truce. Slade slunk away, defeated, but plotting. As the dust settled, Jack collapsed into Emily's arms, the speakeasy's dim bulb casting long shadows. They had survived, but the war's embers glowed. Was this victory, or just a reprieve? With the immediate threat quelled, New York exhaled, but Jack and Emily knew peace was fleeting. They retreated to a cabin upstate, the Adirondacks' crisp air a tonic for their souls. Towering pines whispered secrets, and a crackling fireplace warmed the wooden interior. Here, unencumbered by the city, their romance unfurled like autumn foliage, lazy hikes hand in hand, her laughter echoing as leaves crunched underfoot, evening stargazing, his stories of constellations mingling with dreams of escape. Jack, at 35, shed layers of his guarded self, revealing a man who yearned for normalcy, cooking breakfasts of pancakes and bacon, the sizzle filling the air with domestic bliss. Emily, inspired, wrote not exposés but love letters, tucked into his jacket pockets. "You've shown me shadows have light," she penned one misty morning. Their intimacy was profound, bodies and hearts entwined in a rhythm that healed. One night, under a blanket of stars, Jack proposed, not with a ring from a jeweler, but with a simple chain from his tattoo's design, forged into a pendant. "Marry me, Em. Let's build our own empire." Tears in her eyes, she accepted, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of forever. Back in the city, they planned quietly, Jack dismantling Viper remnants while fortifying alliances. Emily continued her work, but now with his support, her stories advocating reform from within. Months later, on a sun-drenched spring day in Central Park, they wed, intimate, with close friends like me witnessing. Vows exchanged under blooming cherry trees, Jack's eyes shone with unshadowed joy. "You are my light," he whispered. Emily smiled, radiant. "And you, my anchor." Their love, born in shadows, bloomed eternal, a testament that even in the underworld, light could prevail. But as they danced their first as husband and wife, a distant figure watched from the tree line. Slade's shadow lingering, promising that some darkness never fully fades. What new threat would test their bond?